did you use our app, Got It app? What can you say about your user experience, like just regular user and like a mental performance professional?
Yeah, I used it the other day, and I definitely went, and it was interesting going and like talking into like an app, and then being able to go and like kind of hear back what you were saying, um, and then kind of being able to go and kind of like, I'm gonna say like almost like a form of like journaling almost, like how like when you kind of like get your ideas out and then hear them back or read them out in the case of journaling, like it allows you to kind of like put it into more perspective, because you're kind of like hearing what you say, not as you say it, but while like afterwards. And you're like, oh, like you kind of realize, oh, that's kind of a, whether it's an irrational thought or like kind of like a, why is that the thought that I'm having? You kind of like start questioning yourself a little bit more of kind of like, oh, that's it. Like you kind of start putting pieces together, I guess is what I'm saying. Just by like being able to rehear what you're saying to yourself in this case. And then with the like, then I had a little bit of trouble like then getting to questions. Like I was a little too close to like saying something and then asking a question to it about it to then kind of answer myself again, um which could have just been me in that like situation or what, but like I kind of went and tried to go and ask questions to like further the conversation. And I liked it because like I went and was able to go and like kind of dive deeper into the topic that I talked about into the app. And I definitely like pulled away some pieces of things of like, oh, like I didn't think of that before, which kind of shows like the power of like kind of just, as we kind of said, like talking to yourselves can have and then kind of be relieving for you as well.
How it works? How works the Got It app? And how works the internal dialogue? Because internal dialogue technique is a technique from cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a professional technique which we implemented in the app. But the regular people should understand this, how it works.
Yeah, so you go in, there's like a list of some topics that you can kind of cover. As soon as you go into the app, and they kind of give you a list of things you want to be working on. And then based off that, you go in and you hit add in terms of like hit add for a conversation you're gonna have. You kind of as a mentee go and kind of say what's on your mind, hit pause, next section, and then you listen back to it, and then you go and select the mentor section, which they listen to, and then then you have to ask a question based off of what the person said. And it kind of goes back and forth that way of like this internal dialogue with yourself with two different voices talking to each other.
Gotcha. On your opinion, what the main benefits can get the athlete or coach or parent from this app and from the internal dialogue process?
Mm-hmm. I think it kind of goes and gets you to like question your own thinking a little bit more, so it gains that awareness. Like a lot of times you might go and like not realize like what you're saying to yourself or kind of what your mind's thinking of, so it kind of can gain awareness for yourself. Kind of can go and help you, I'm gonna say like kind of look at your words almost, or like look at what you're saying rather than like through your words of what you're saying. So like not being all caught up in your words, but just like kind of listening to what you're saying to yourself, so it's not like you're stuck or feeling like tangled up in your own thoughts. And then also like people go and like, if someone asks you, I'm gonna say like another person asks you a question or advice on something, like we're very quick to give each other advice or questions about different things and question it. So like, and we tend not to take our own advice on things that we say. So I feel like the app can kind of like help you work your way through, and like kind of like you said, like a starting point of, hey, like I kind of liked like talking some of these things out. I liked being able to go and like ask questions to myself that I might not normally ask. So kind of provides like maybe that stepping stone of being a little bit more open to working with like a professional, as well as kind of having that in between, like you said, like in between sessions, like time to like kind of let out some thoughts that you're having to yourself.
If comparing this approach, like internal dialogue approach, with very popular meditation approach, what can you say about this?
in terms of like meditation, I find that I guess, yeah, it's being as present as you can in the moment and trying to go and like look at your thoughts that you're having non-judgmentally, non like critically, but kind of looking at them for what they are, which is like thoughts that you're having, which are going to happen naturally. And that's kind of like that meditation and like mindfulness approach of like you're more observing what you're saying rather than kind of like judging or judging them or kind of like criticizing them. You're kind of just looking at them for what they are, which in this case are words, like your own internal dialogue.
And do you think what kind of people best suits Got It app?
I think it could be for anyone with it. Like I'm always an advocate for like in terms of like mental performance or mental skills. Like I always say that those are life skills that you can learn in any area of your life or help improve any area of your life. Because if you go, whether it's I know like in the app it has like loneliness or success or like different things like that. Like if you can go and like work your way through something, or like relaxation, whatever it is, like if you can find an area of something or find something that helps you and helps you feel better, that's going to translate whether it's school, whether it's sports, whether it's family, friends, whatever, you name it, right? Like it kind of expands not just in sports but also in life, because confidence or whatever it might be, if you can find that and kind of apply it to multiple areas, it's going to impact really anyone.
Do you really think that all answers are in our head?
I think a good amount of them are in your head. I think it's now guiding the guiding that way to then be able to get to those answers. Because if you can guide an athlete or guide with the app, guide yourself to an answer, you're much more likely to actually follow through with it because they're the ones or you're the ones that came up with it. Where if you kind of get told what to do with everything, it's kind of like, oh, like more advice being given to me, I should do this, this, and this, and probably a lot less likely to follow through. So I'm a believer of like kind of like that like strengths approach of that people have say majority of the answers that they want themselves in their head already, and then it might be a couple of small like in my case like different skills that you might introduce to them that could be useful or helpful for them. But I have found like a little bit more of just like kind of explaining a little bit of how the mind works or how like our mind can impact us, and then it kind of gives them a little bit of a tool to be able to then go and kind of apply to their life where they still feel like, hey, I came up with this, um as well as like then they kind of apply it to areas of their life to then come up with their own plan. So I think that's like maybe like a little bit of like questioning to guide them there, but for the most part they have the goal of what they want. It's now you're helping them find that process to get to where they want to go.
But Matt, it's so not pretty comfortable, to talk with oneself and create some questions. The,
Hmm.
the answers is okay, but you have to create some questions. So rather than to get some ready-made solution from YouTube or some meditation apps, what I have to, as a user, why I have to use this approach?
I think it's personal, it's coming from you. So like that's where like a lot of times like it kind of gets people maybe a little bit uncomfortable like kind of talking to themselves, but like it's something you do every single day. If you ask someone, do you talk to yourself, like instantly even if they don't admit it, it's going to come and they're going to think to themselves, oh, do I talk to myself? And like right there is talking to yourself. So like we constantly do it. Now I guess it's more getting used to hearing like your own voice or hearing a voice kind of going back and forth, even though it's something we already do. So I think it's trying to normalize how much we do talk to ourselves and now making it a little bit more productive for us. And also maybe address areas that we might not feel comfortable talking and kind of getting you a little bit out of your comfort zone of talking, um, in this case to yourself, where it is personal. It's not being like shared or anything like that. It's for yourself to improve yourself, where so it's a lot more of like a personal approach rather than like some cookie cutter like advice given like on the internet, because you're and you can find a lot of self-help information online that's going to be general for anyone, of whether it's feeling down or like upset or like even like depressed. Like you're going to get the answers of like find activities you like, go outside, exercise, eat healthy. And it's like those could be beneficial, but now how can you make it personalized for yourself? And that's kind of like the app can go and be beneficial or helpful, to then go and like kind of get answers of like, what is that plan for you going forward?
Do you experiencing the internal dialogue in your life?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. What kind
Yeah,
of
I think,
what type of this? It's negative or
I mean, yeah, I think that, I mean, our minds are kind of programmed to be like not programmed, but like they kind of are programmed to be typically negative or like hurtful to ourselves, the way we've kind of like grown up. Like that's why it kind of like it takes however many positives to outweigh one negative. Like I think it's like somewhere between 7 to 8 like positive events have to happen to outweigh one negative. Or after a game or performance, like you can have a great game and you're still thinking about like that one mistake you made out of an entire game. So I think, yeah, I think that's kind of when I said like awareness of our self-talk is like really important, because we can really get down on ourselves very quickly and very easily. And once we can kind of separate like that our thoughts aren't reality or controlling us, that's like very powerful to be able to do. So yeah, absolutely have internal dialogue that spans, I'm going to say probably more negatively than positively, because that's, I'm going to say most people.